So, the most important electronic gadget we have today, from which we can't stay away for a moment, is our smartphone. If someone asked us what would life be like without cell phones, then maybe it can be a matter of deep concern for us. No one in the whole world can deny this fact that smartphones are so efficient that they have recouped certain things in our life. For example, landline phones, alarm clock, camera, calculator, etc., which has reduced our burden. On the other hand, we have become so accustomed to our smartphone that it has turned into the biggest distraction for us. And because of it, we can't even focus on some of the most important things in our life. This is Infology, and today we will be answering an extraordinary question. What if smartphones were never invented? Clearly, the smartphone is a different breed from all that came before it, including those once super sleek and ultra stylish flip phones of the 90s and the humongous bricks that were proudly carried in the late 70s and the 80s. The first smartphone device was a Simon Personal Communicator from IBM, developed in 1992, although it was 3 more years before the term smartphone was even widely spoken about. As such, we still have two distinct social groups when it comes to how we view advanced mobile devices. You are either a digital immigrant or a digital native. That is, you have neither adapted to, accepted, possibly rejected certain tech trends that have risen in your lifetime, or you have never known anything different because smartphones and the like have been around since the day you were born. In an updated 2019 report from the VEW Research Center in Washington, D.C., approximately 96% of Americans own a cell phone of some design, with 81% owning a smartphone. Less than a decade ago, smartphone ownership was just at 35%. It shows that tech natives amongst us are increasingly attached to the mobile devices. Take smartphones away forever then, or in fact, never introduce them in the first place, and the whole world would suddenly feel very different, for better and for worse. Without smartphones, we would have the freedom of not being connected 24 into 7. New selfies, photos for lunches, and no sharing on the spot status updates. We would be forced to actually live in the moment, make our memories, and rely only upon them. Without smartphones as a distraction, it is also possible that we can improve our creativity skills. The so called fear of missing out would disappear too. Of course, were smartphones never to happen, we wouldn't be switched off completely. Other computers and the internet would still exist. It's just that handheld, pocket sized access point to the internet wouldn't. We would still have the wealth of information that the internet offers us, but we would lose all the smartphone specific benefits like the traffic updates, GPS maps, immediate access to breaking news, up to date weather alerts, etc. We would still be able to communicate with friends and relatives all around the world through email, landline, or postal service, but the immediacy of texting, picture messaging, or video calling wouldn't be there. Still, the argument that we over rely on our smartphones for superficial reasons is often repeated, particularly when it comes to social media. But it is also possible that, without a constant state of self aware connection, we would see a decline in the number of young people hurting from social anxiety. Today's smartphone market is also a big business, with multiple companies like Apple, Samsung competing for a customer. As you can see in several advertisements, there are many agencies that try to promote their mobile phones to us. Those products are interesting and can lure customers to buy them easily. They will present about new applications, programs, and styles that can persuade us. In contrast, mobile phones with many applications will be expensive. Phone producers will change their phone style a little and promote them again. When we will see them, we will think that they are new and we will buy them. Needless to say, if smartphones weren't a thing, all of these companies would look radically different. Could Apple, for instance, whose business today largely relies on the prevalence of the iPhone, even stay afloat? The lives of any business professional would clearly be different as well. Employer expectations in terms of productivity have tended to increase as per the rise of the smartphone. Workforce is rarely away from the desk nowadays, thanks to email apps that are always on. But without smartphones, it would be easier to finish off for the weekend and actually mean it. Also, without smartphones, face to face interactions would have also evolved differently. Meanwhile, the way in which companies advertise themselves might have evolved differently too. Though social media would still prove an effective platform, without customers who are glued to their mobile phones, business owners might have more heavily relied on word of mouth as a genuine success. In a research, it was found that students preferred phones to communicate instead of person to person communication. Interestingly, nearly 90% of the students from the research also complained that real life conversations were ruined if the other person was using the mobile at the same time. But this wouldn't be a problem either. Without phones, children won't have the habitual need to check their phones at any moment, which would result in closer relationships, less distraction in class, and also less social pressure. And well, if we say that cell phones are perfectly possible, but the person who invented them in the real world isn't, then chances are high that someone else would invent them not too much later. In terms of the social situations, without smartphones, we would never have seen the emergence of apps such as Amazon, Flipkart. All things considered, social situations would be a whole more lot social without smartphones to get in the way. So that's work and play. But what about schools and home? Sadly, erasing of smartphones from our cultural history wouldn't erase bullying in general. But we might never have seen the widely reported rise in online abuse that young people suffer today. However, smartphones have also become a vital tool for research. So there are some obvious downsides for education, not least that assignments would be harder to complete and large families would still have to give time to a home computer to ensure that everyone could access the internet for their studies. We would also never have grown used to easily answering practically any question or settling practically any debate with just a few taps on our phones. Instead, we would still have to learn and memorize information to access it from our own brains if it's ever needed. So, there's a chance that without smartphones, although the amount of knowledge we could instantly access would dramatically fall, our brain power would increase. Strangely, the differences in the way our brains work wouldn't be the only biological change, because we might also have smaller thumbs. Yes, according to a 2016 study in the UK, 1 in 20 people felt that the thumbs they usually use for swiping through their phones seem to have grown bigger. So, a smartphone free world isn't wholly one thing or the other. There are positivities and negativities when we imagine our lives without them. But for now, the smartphones don't appear to be going anywhere. The world keeps turning and we continue to advance. It's up to us to find a balance between using the tech and remembering what it was that united us before we kept those devices in our pockets. But that's what would happen if smartphones weren't a thing. Facts that will blow away your mind. With around 200 countries and more than 7.5 billion people, the world is full of interesting, fun, and fascinating people, places, and things. In the land of Kiwis, for instance, you'll find the highest concentration of pet owners on the planet, and over in the Nicaragua, you'll find one of the only two flags in the world that features the color purple. Hungry for more facts about the world and its ever-growing population? Then continue watching the video. Number 1. There are only 3 countries in the world that doesn't use the metric system. For simplicity's sake, most of the more than 200 countries in the world use the metric system when describing things like length or mass. However, there are 3 countries that stand out: Liberia, Myanmar, and the United States. And soon the number might be down to 2. In 2018, Liberia Commerce and Industry Minister Wilson Tarpe said the government plans to adopt the metric system in order to promote accountability and transparency in trade. Number 2. The world's most densely populated island is the size of 2 soccer fields. Santa Cruz del Islote in the archipelago of San Bernardo off the coast of Colombia may only be about the size of 2 soccer fields, also known as 2 acres. But the artificial island has 4 main streets and 10 neighborhoods. 500 people live on the island in around 155 houses. With so many people packed into such a small space, it's the most densely populated island in the world. Number 3. The Canary Islands are named after dogs but not birds. It might seem safe to assume that the Canary Islands were named after canary birds, but the location was actually named after dogs. Although it's off the coast of northwestern Africa, the archipelago is actually part of Spain. In Spanish, the area's name is Islas Canarias, which comes from the Latin phrase Canariae insulae for island of dogs. Number 4. The world's quietest room is located at Microsoft's headquarters in Washington state. Silence is golden, as they say, and while it may not be worth quite as much as jewels and gold to most people, it certainly was the primary goal for those who built the quietest room in the world. Located at Microsoft's headquarters in Redmond, Washington, the lab room measures background noise of minus 20.35 decibels, which is 20 decibels below the threshold of human hearing, and breaks previous records for spaces that were deemed the planet's quietest places. Number 5. North Korea and Cuba are the only places you can't buy Coca Cola. No matter where you go, it's comforting to know you can always enjoy a Coca Cola. Well, almost anywhere. While this fizzy drink is sold practically everywhere, it still hasn't officially made its way to North Korea or Cuba, according to the BBC. That's because these countries are under long term US trade embargoes. However, some folks say you might be able to snag a sip of the stuff if you try hard enough, although it will typically be a lot more expensive than what you would pay in the States, and probably imported from a neighboring country such as Mexico or China. 5. Most mysterious ghost ships and haunted stories of the world. Mystery, fear, enigma encompass to seafaring ghost ships or phantom ships, tales that has been passed around throughout centuries by sailors. These mysterious ships are fantasized as things that appear in the middle of the sea and disappear quickly, which is a bad thing. In addition, abandoned ships, which are found floating in the sea under fearsome circumstances, are also included. Number 5. The Joyita. In 1955, this fishing and charter boat was found abandoned in the South Pacific 5 weeks after it had been reported overdue. The air search mission could not trace it until a merchant ship found it drifting almost 600 miles off its original source with no sign of crew and cargo. There was a doctor's bag and several bloody bandages on the deck, and the radio was tuned to the universal distress signal. But what actually happened there was never revealed, as none of the crew was ever seen again. Number 4. The Jian Sing. Some ghost ships are so mysterious they barely even have a backstory. In 2006, the Australian Coast Watch found a ship floating in the sea. It had a broken tow rope, so being lost while dragged around the water would explain why it was empty. But that was about all investigators could go on. The name Jian Singh was printed on the side, but there was nothing else to identify the ship. Investigations found no records or distress signals, no identifying documents or belongings, and no reports of a missing boat. They couldn't even figure out who it belonged to or where it came from. The most they can figure out is that it probably supplied food and fuel to fishing boats. But that didn't answer why no one tried to save it when it broke off. Number 3. The Octavius. The Octavius became more than just a legend back in 1775 when a whaling ship named the Herald found it aimlessly drifting off the coast of Greenland with all of its crew frozen dead by the Arctic cold. To add to the spooky environment, the ship's captain was found sitting at his desk with a logbook in front of him and finishing a log entry from 1762. Relating to this could mean that the Octavius had been floating for 13 years and completed its passage to the Atlantic while returning to England from the Orient through the Northwest Passage as a ghost ship. Number 2. The Caluche. It is a legend of the Chilota mythology where it is described as a ghost ship which comes into being every night near the island of Chiloe. It says the ship carries the spirits of all the people who have drowned at sea. The Caluche is strikingly beautiful, bright, and gay, as always surrounded by party music, sounds, and laughter. However, it only stays for a few moments and then suddenly disappears or submerges itself under the water. Number 1. Mary Celesta. Probably the most famous real-life ghost ship story embraces the Mary Celesta, found adrift in the Atlantic Ocean in 1872 in a completely unharmed condition with all its sails still up, the crew's personal belongings intact, and the cargo hold of over 1,500 alcohol barrels untouched. The only thing missing were the lifeboat, the captain's logbook, and most importantly, the entire crew. Since pirates' attack could not be held responsible for such a phenomenon, theories of crew mutiny, waterspout killing, and the consumption of poisonous food leading to madness came into being. However, the most reasonable explanation could be there was a storm of some kind with technical issue, compelling the crew immediately to abandon the ship in the lifeboat and die later at the sea. Apart from these, the mystery of the haunted ship surrounds with ghosts and even sea monsters and alien abduction theories. With so much innovation in the world of transportation, we are bound to see some really cool personal vehicles in the future. These 10 most unusual vehicles you will not believe have seemingly brought that future to our doorstep, and they all look amazing to use. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can keep up with our most latest and almost exciting content. These are the strangest cars ever made. The Atto. High performance mobility scooter, the Atto is quite a sight. It folds up into a tidy little package when not in use and uses an LED display to provide the rider with all the data they need. The brushless DC motor powers you along at a good clip of 4 miles per hour and can take inclines of up to 6 degrees with no problem at all. Its weight capacity is 220 pounds or 100 kilos, and its 53-inch turning radius helps you avoid most obstacles in your path. The battery has a lifetime of up to 5 hours and can travel 10 miles on a single charge. The Atto even has an auto shutdown feature and even breaks down into 2 separate pieces to make moving it around manually amazingly easy. The Atto even has a reverse mode which is very helpful.
Carbugallo XO1.
XO1 is a pedal-powered vehicle that's rigged out with a lot of extras and safety measures. It uses a brushless electric motor that uses the rider's own power to propel itself along with minimal effort. The body is made up of a wooden monocoque supplemented with carbon fiber reinforcements. The roof includes a 120-watt solar panel that helps to charge up to 48-volt battery pack. A full charge can power the XO1 for up to 70 kilometers, and its top speed is 25 kilometers an hour when pedaling and is assisted by the vehicle's electric motor. LEDs are strategically placed to keep you illuminated at night, and it weighs a grand total of 55 kgs. How often do you get yourself complaining about the price of gas? Well, maybe you need to stop complaining and start taking some action, which is exactly what Dirk Gian and Stefan Zimmer did. Traveling at 3,107 miles, TV host and engineers from Germany spent just $13, and it wasn't even on fuel. The pair traveled across Australia from Albany to Sydney in a lightweight electric car called the Wind Explorer. The car was powered by the wind with electricity generating wind turbines as well as kites. The 18-day trip broke many records, including crossing a continent with the wind-powered vehicle, the longest distance covered in a vehicle in just 36 hours, and covering the most distance on land. Before you race out to try and buy a Wind Explorer, know that it's still in the concept phase. The 441-pound vehicle, which includes a battery pack, has a carbon fiber and aluminum frame with sports bicycle tires. The lithium-ion battery pack charges overnight with a wind turbine when conditions allow. The band set off from Perth in Western Australia on January 21, 2011 and arrived in Sydney on February the 14th. During the entire trip, they reached a high speed of 50 miles per hour.
The TFX flying car.
No one likes being stuck in traffic, but the TFX goes into production. Then it's only a matter of time before that's a thing of the past. Imagine being able to get in your car, lift it off the ground and fly it to work or school. The TFX is a proposed vehicle that could be in production sooner than you think. It has 4 seats and the capability to take off and land without a runway. Terragua unveiled the plug-in hybrid electric car in 2013 and significant progress has been made. It has a claimed range of around 500 miles and can travel up to 410 miles while cruising at speeds of 100 miles per hour. The flying car is also fitted with a 99 bhp rotary aircraft engine that powers both wheels for driving and rotors for flying. The good news is you don't have to be a pilot to fly it. It's autonomous but does have manual controls and an override function. There is also a parachute system should it be required. Learning to drive this car, believe it or not, is simple. It can take around 5 hours to master and the car fits into a standard single car garage. Development of their TFX has taken around 10 years. People often form an emotional attachment to the vehicles. Still, that statement couldn't be any more accurate with this Toyota FV2. This concept car is a small pond vehicle that you can drive sitting down or standing up. It connects to driver's physical and emotional level. You might be wondering how that works, and yes, it is a bit odd. The pond has one wheel in the front and two in the back, and the colors of patterns on the car's exterior reflect the mood of the driver. Strangely now, this car also doesn't have a steering wheel. You shift your body weight around to move the car forward, backward, left or right. With the help of image and voice recognition, the car will also collect data about the driver's mood to suggest driving routes. It will even notice your skill and will offer driving techniques to suit. The car is so far advanced that it almost doesn't seem real, and it's not yet. It was unveiled as a concept at the Tokyo Motor Show in 2013, then again in 2016 at the Chicago Auto Show.
(1970) Ferrari 512.
So now perhaps the most beautiful looking vehicle on today's list, this wonderfully designed 1970 Ferrari 512. Now that's one heck of a name, and some folks back in the day called it a UFO on wheels, and it's not hard to see why. But those with a bunch of disposable income in the later half of the 20th century could trick their money on one of these bad boys, and it is truly one of the more completely and uniquely designed four-wheeled vehicles of all time. It was introduced as a concept car back in 1970, and the two-seater came with a V12 engine from Ferrari race car. There actually was only one of these made until just a few years ago, where a couple of guys restored the vehicle and actually brought it to life fully.
The Sea Lion.
Have you got money to burn but no space on your driveway for the luxury boat you have always wanted? Then don't worry, all you need is a Sea Lion. Why buy a boat and car if you can have a vehicle that is both? Sea Lion is a project that has been set up through Fantasy Ventures by Mark Witt. The car has a price tag of $259,500 and it is being designed to travel both on water and land. What if that isn't adventurous enough? The creator also wants to make sure it's the world's fastest amphibian car. To do so, he is making sure it's crafted with only the best parts and workmanship money can buy. The body is TIG welded aluminum partnered with CNC milled parts, and it travels at a speed of around 180 miles per hour on land. And that it's not without its final engine. It currently has 174 horsepower Mazda 13B rotary engine, but it will eventually have a 300 to 600 hours power Renesas RX-8 engine so that it can set the sea speed record.
The Limo Jet.
Is it a plane? Nope, it's a limo jet. But what exactly is this thing? This unique limousine has a Learjet body, a 28-inch wheels, and even qualified for street legal acceleration, even though it's a whopping 42 feet long. You could definitely grab all of your friends and family and can take an epic ride in this huge car. You can have all kinds of limos, but never a limo that looked like an aeroplane. Talk about arriving in style with special pieces from at least 3 different car brands. This bad boy is truly one of the kind. How much pulling up to your prom in this unique limo set you back? The cost of the limo jet is estimated at $5 million US, thanks to all the hard work that the automobile experts put into it. Better start saving up your pocket money. Now, while you may look fly driving down the highway in this flashy motor, you might get shocked to hear that the limo jet can't actually take off. Yeah, you heard that right. The limo jet can't fly. kind of disappointing, but you can always pretend that this is your very own private jet. Additional works include internal and external sound systems, a fully loaded bar, and a non motorized door. So, guys, what do you think? Can you see yourself driving around in this extravagant car?
Tutorium.
It can often feel like you have only just filled your car with gas and then it's nearly empty again. It's a never ending cycle of spending money just to get to the places where you can earn it. But what if you could fill up once and then never again? That's what one company is proposing with a vehicle that runs on thorium fuel. Thorium is a dense material that has around 20 million times more energy than coal, the same size. It is a naturally occurring radioactive element that has been discovered in 1828 by Norwegian mineralogist. A Swedish chemist then found it and named it Thor after the god Thor. The company called the Laser Power Systems were quite intrigued by this mineral and designed a concept car that would run on it. Just 8 grams of the stuff would let this car run 1 million miles. As a result, the vehicle would most likely outlive you on a single tank of fuel. The only problem is we are moving away from such types of materials. 12 art projects which have delighted us this year. Indescribable beauty is perhaps the only way to describe some of the creative output from various corners of the globe which we have seen this year. So we have picked 12 of the absolute best of them, just in case you haven't had a chance to see them with your own eyes. Number 12. An Ocean of Plastic Balls. The National Building Museum in Washington, D.C. is well known for installing new, fascinating and original art installations every year. This year it set up an ocean made up of 1 million plastic balls, complete with a shoreline allowing visitors to dive in. The ocean had mirrors installed all around it to create the impression of a much larger space. Number 11. Wire Sculptures. Kendra Heist is one of the best artists in Britain who works with one of the most complicated materials for sculpture available, wire meshing. The curator of the Tower of London requested that she constructed 13 sculptures which would best describe the history of the royal menagerie. Heist approached this task with due care, trying to give each of the animal sculptures as much underlying significance and meaning as possible. Number 10. The Floating Flower Garden. An interactive floating flower garden was created at one of the largest art festivals in Tokyo. It involved the use of more than 2,300 still surviving flowers which continued to grow and bloom during their uses as part of the art installation. The installation was designed in such a way that the flowers were lifted into the air as a visitor approached them. Number 9. Wood Sculptures. It's difficult to imagine just how exactly British sculptor James Durand Webb goes about creating his incredible works. After many hours of painstaking work, he somehow manages to turn gnarled tree roots and branches into real wonders which are simply outstanding in their realism and attention to detail. Number 8. Marigold Out of a Tube. Walking through a park in the city of Boulogne-sur-Mer in France, photographer Steve Hugh came across this amusing installation depicting flowers that had supposedly spilled out of a huge tube of paint. Number 7. Memorial to Merchant Seamen Who Died in the Second World War. This memorial first appeared in Cardiff in 1994. Viewed from one side, the sculpture looks like the cut open body of a merchant ship. From the other, it depicts a human face. Number 6. Luminous Sculptures. Photographer and artist Darren Pearson, who works under the pseudonym Darius Twin, creates these highly original and memorable sculptures using neon lights and the camera. Number 5. A hedgehog shaped like a huge dragon. Near a farm in Norfolk, UK, you can see a huge green dragon with a length of 45.7 meters. John Brooker, the creator of this wonderful sculpture, pays close attention to its appearance and regularly clips any of its outgrowths of branches or leaves. Number 4. The Love Sculpture. Ukrainian sculptor Alexander Milo presented his new project at the Burning Man Festival. The sculpture depicts a scene of conflict between a man and a woman, within whom one can see two small children. Number 3. 50,000 keys collected from all over the world. This installation with the title of Key in Hand was created by Japanese artist Chicharu Shiota, especially for the Venice Biennale. It aims to remind us of the connection between all things on this earth. about the unpredictable cross connections which occur in the fates of individuals, and about the importance of the memories we all hold dear in our hearts. Number 2. The giant armored panda statue. This unusual creation was installed in Shenyang, China, and was created by Bi Heng. It depicts a giant panda in armor which is 9 meters tall and 7 meters wide. With the yin yang symbol clearly visible on its chest, Bihang aimed to remind people that the whole world is interconnected, as well as the idea that we must not sacrifice nature for the sake of technological progress. And now for the last one, Flower Parade in Holland. 19 teams of volunteers took part in the year's Flower Parade in Holland, which was dedicated to the life and legacy of Vincent van Gogh. As you can see, the results were simply wonderful.